Good morning, friends, and welcome back to the Legend Fiction Show. I'm your host, Dominic. Today we're talking about creating subtext. It's a it's a tough thing to do. It's something a bunch of authors kind of wonder about. And it's one of my favorite things to think about when it comes to writing a novel that doesn't feel like it's in your face and on your nose, in your face. Creating something that feels like it's more nuanced, like there's some deeper thought going on in it. So we're going to be spending about a half hour recording that conversation with Gabi Batel, who is the host of the Legend Fiction Creative Writing School. After that, we're going to have two guest authors, Adam Collings, who is from Tasmania, I believe. He's connected with me through one of our Australian friends. And then we'll also have Althea Damgaard coming on. And we're going to have a couple of half-hour conversations with them. Major conversation, I think, with Althea is going to be, let me pull up my list thingy here again. Uh, yeah, how Christian fantasy can have death, war, and morally gray characters. I think that's going to be a pretty fun conversation. So, if you've got any questions, anything about anything, say hi in the chat. I'd love to hear from you. Um, Kick around your questions on any topic. And so, usually, what I'm doing with these recording sessions, I'm also using them as opportunities to record aloud lessons for courses, right? Because I'm creating courses inside the Legend Fiction community. And one of the main courses that I created is called Storyteller. In fact, it's kind of the founding sort of series of diary entries, my own diary entries, to help me find freedom to be the kind of author that I want to be because I wasn't finding the advice that I wanted online. Or I wasn't finding even the writing community that I wanted to find online. And so let me pitch this to you. I'll share this to you, and then we'll get into, see if we can record a little bit of it, or I'll just keep monologuing until Gabby joins in about 6 minutes, which is probably what I'll do. Okay, if you're like me, you have tons of ideas and you have a hard time following up with them, building habits around them, finding friends who understand the fact that, your love for world building and dragons and going deep into the minutiae, for example, of the Silmarillion and, getting Tolkien's lore building. You want to do that same sort of thing, but it's hard to do. You might be a high school student or a college student. You don't have a lot of income. You don't have a lot of time. And when you do have time, you kind of want to spend it with people who get you, who understand what it is you want to do with your creative energy, journey, adventuring, right? So I started Legend Fiction because I wanted writing to feel more like a game. I want it to feel fun. I don't want it to feel like a grind. Um, there's way too many communities and I would shadow like a bunch, and each one would focus on a different thing. Like this one focuses on coaching, and this one focuses on critique groups, and this one focuses on coursework, and this one is just like a forum. But maybe people are home, or those who are there, you don't really like them. So I thought, what if I could create my own group? And out the gate, I want it to be ludicrously epic. And that's kind of been our sort of metric from the beginning. How do I make it feel like you're playing a game? Because when you enter into your own creative writing and your own world building, it feels like being in a game for you, or watching a movie inside your head. It's like it's an entire fantasy world. Well, I'm just thinking, why shouldn't the experience of that be the kind of community that you're a part of? Now, obviously, I can't yet figure out how to gamify everything through a 3D environment and headsets and stuff like that. Um, Joe Dad Jokes is saying, howdy, just making sure this is not a text about making Subway sandwiches. Absolutely, Subway sandwiches. Yeah, it's like, you put the cheese on the bottom so that you get the crispy texture on the bottom and on the top of the thing. In fact, I started making, what do you call? They're like ham sandwiches. I'll fry ham sandwiches, and instead of putting like butter down on the pan first, which is always a good idea, I'll probably do a bit of butter. But then you put like some cheese on the bottom, and then you get a nice sort of crispy, you know, layer on the top and the bottom of your fried sandwich. Anyhow, absolutely, that is the subtext we're talking about. Thanks for clarifying. Where was I going? Oh, building habits and gamifying stuff. The best that we've been able to sort of imagine is, okay, we're going to create a forum. We're going to have a common culture. We're going to create tournaments. We're going to create like Hogwarts houses, but our own Hogwarts houses. There you go. The perfect subtext. Thanks, Joe. I'm glad you agree. By the way, if you have a specific way to make a nice fried, like a ham sandwich or something, if that's what you do, let me know. I'm curious to see if you do something different than what I do. Um, what was I saying? make it ludicrously epic, right? So that's why we started a tournament. And my gosh, it's so fun. We have four, so 3 or 4 teams in there of authors in groups of four, and they're trying to outright each other every month and win what we call the Ever Badge. And if you win across 3 months, which is a season, you get to claim the Ever Badge and keep it on your profile forever. Otherwise, throughout the month, you're fighting to just get the the tournament badge, and then if somebody else ousts you, that badge goes over to them, right? So it's fun. We have had authors finishing their novels, just punching through their novels because they create their own private little chat group and they stay in touch with each other and they motivate each other to like really get their word counts up. It's such a fantastic way to just, even if it's not good writing, it kind of doesn't matter. Are you doing any writing at all? Right. So the tournament does that. Now that's for the word count warriors. Not everybody is, not everybody likes that. But it's really fun to watch. And so if you've got a competitive streak, that's who it's built for. We also have houses, a bit like Hogwarts, but we created our own. I did a bunch of my own thinking and created like the Challamancers, the Excalibur, the Wanderies, and the Visioneers. And they're based on Jungian psychology because the archetypes are just fantastic. But it's got its own mythology and it's actually embedded inside a massive shared fantasy world that we're slowly building together, right? There's Gabby. Welcome. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm just trying to explain to people how to make a good ham sandwich because that's obviously what we're talking about. And we're talking, it's in the context of Subway, obviously. So Joe dash dad jokes in the chat and I are going off on ham sandwiches. And so he says the secret to a ham sandwich is thinly sliced apple on top of the cheese. It's just chef's kiss. Shout out to Joe. I would never have put
Really?
apple. Now, I sometimes do put a little bit of mayonnaise on the inside, and that helps it go down smooth, but I didn't think about apple.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. What do I put into a ham sandwich? It depends. Is it a grilled cheese ham sandwich or is it like a cold
Well,
ham
that's
sandwich?
kind of what I was riffing on was if we're talking about subtext in a Subway context, then yeah, the subtext is you put grilled cheese down first and on top to get a texture on the outside.
Yes.
Mm,
Those are
I
my
didn't think
favorite
about
ones.
apple on the inside. With ham, it's really good. That is good.
Yeah, I've
Applesauce.
never heard of that before, but I like it.
There
Especially
you go.
especially if you could like, I don't know. You know how like you saute onions and they get soft? I don't know if there's something similar you could do with apple that just, like,
Well, you know
makes
what
it
I
not,
do?
like, flaky, like, not flaky, but
Mm,
crunchy, like, not apple textured and more smooth?
mhm.
I wonder what that would
Well,
be like.
something that something that I do is we'll buy like a big medallion of, like ham, and
Mhm.
then it's, like, sort of thin, but it's like a steak. It's a ham steak, okay?
Yeah.
And then what I'll do is I'll make a pot of rice, and then while that's going on the one side, throw, like, a couple of onions in a pan, dice up a couple of apples, and then take that same ham steak and throw it in, and then
That
salt it a
sounds
little bit,
so
and
good.
then and here's the kicker, bit of maple syrup.
Oh,
Okay,
really?
and then yeah, maple syrup is fantastic, and then you saute it all together,
Uh-huh.
mix it with the rice,
With the
and it's
rice.
awesome, right? It's
That
a bit like
sounds
candied,
so
salted.
good. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness. My family
it's
would
very
never go for that because they don't like apples, period, but, oh, that
what?
sounds so good.
Heretics.
I know.
Victor Giviani in the chat, he says, "I find putting my sub on slices of Windows tastes
Hmm?
better." I must be thick this morning, Vic. I'm sorry, I don't get the joke. Okay, Gabby, we're talking about subtext. So I think we've
Yes.
got you until 10:45, so about 30 minutes.
Yeah, and today, again, I have a
Awesome.
little bit of leeway, so 9 o'clock is cool. Or 9 o'clock my
Sweet.
time, so 11 your time.
Okay. Awesome. Well, why don't we get right into it? So, friends, if you're catching this live or the replay within like 7 days of this dropping live, you're privy to a sort of exclusive recording from the Legend Fiction School, which is a project that Gabby herself hosts. And let me share with you very briefly how the Legend Fiction Creative Writing School works. Okay, Gabby and I went and had a look at all of the different creative writing programs that are out there, and we're trying to find what did people hate about all of these programs. And people complained about a lot of different things. Um, there's no coaching.
Mhm.
Nobody's actually paying attention to or caring about anything that I am doing as a student. I'm
Mhm.
overwhelmed maybe with content, and I've
Mhm.
got to buy like a billion textbooks, and I'm already a broke college student. Um,
They only tell you what's wrong with it, not how to fix it.
there you go. It's also way too expensive, or you get
Mhm.
locked in for like an inordinate amount of time, and life
And
happens, and you got to change it up, right?
it's not fun.
and it's not fun. And that's kind of the metric in legend fiction. At least we're always aiming at. How do we make it ludicrously epic so that you enjoy it? Because
Yep.
if you're just trying to grind at it, it's not a game, right?
Exactly, it's not gonna be good writing if you hate it, if you're just doing it to, like, fulfill an assignment. Oh, that's the other thing, the assignments are too rigid and they don't, like, actually apply necessary to your precise story.
Mhm.
So, yeah, if you're just trying to complete assignments, you're never gonna write something that you really enjoy. I mean,
Yeah.
I've even had some creative writing courses that I have loved, just because I had to take them for college, but because they were just vaguely creative writing, they were vaguely fiction, I never made something that I was, like, super proud of from that. I just did, like, okay, I did the stories because that's what I was supposed to do. It was only when
Mhm.
I took a course where I got to dictate what the story was beginning to end. That's something I'm proud of, and that's something I've saved. So I don't wanna, like, shoehorn people into little assignments that, sure, can teach theory, but they're not gonna
Mhm.
teach you how to write your book. That's the point. We want you to be able to write your book so that by the end, you're like, "Hey, I got a
Yep.
manuscript here."
Yep. Well, that's the part that I love most about how the school works. One, it's small and focused so that Gabby is
Mhm.
able to spend time with every student and give you feedback on a snippet, a sample of your writing every single week, which is
Mhm.
incredible. Two, Gabby meets with you to help you build like a calendar so that by the end of 12 months, you'll have finished a novel. You can then decide if you want to publish it or not, or you'll finish a collection of 12 stories. But the point is, it's not just a course. You actually are working towards winning, so much winning, okay? You'll finish something by the end of the 12 months. Um, if you visit legendfiction.com right now, we've got it on the homepage. There's a writing calculator. So if you're like, I think I want to write this novel, it's going to be this long, you can put that in. I can write maybe 3 days a week and I can manage 300, 500 words a day. You put that in, it'll instantly tell you, you will be done on this day. And then you can mark that off on your calendar and you can work towards that. It's so cool to have a deadline. Well, that's baked into how this writing school works. And as of right now, it's only $99 a month. It will go up in the future. Um, as you go, check it out. You can start a 30-day free trial and then you can cancel at any time. Now, part of the Legend Fiction guarantee is like, yeah, we'll refund you all of your unused months as long as you complete a 30-day streak, a 30-day writing streak. If you get in there and use it for 2 days and ask for refunds, like, well, I'm sorry. You got to actually use the thing to convince us that, you deserve a refund. But we think that's pretty fair because we're gifting an incredible amount of value because we want you to win.
Yeah.
So,
'Cause I'm a professional editor, and so you're getting developmental editing for free with the school.
mhm,
So you get the school, and you get one section of the developmental editing. Now, for me, when I do developmental editing, there's 2 rounds. It's kinda like the grander round where I talk about the stuff that needs to be, worked on that could use some tender loving care, and then I do another round where I kinda go more on the paragraph level, like, "Okay, I think this particular scene maybe could go after the next one," or so it's 2 different levels. You get that first round free with me.
that's pretty
And
incredible. Yeah.
once you're done, if you continue to work on that project, all the rest of my services are half off.
Mhm. So there you go. Come and check it out, legendfiction.com. Like I said, you can get in there for 30 days. You can binge everything, download the resources, and uh, book
I
it.
will.
But we hope that you stay with us and book it with a real book and make a real book.
Yes.
Okay, today we're talking about subtext.
Mhm.
So we'll give it a 2-second countdown so that you can clip this out nicely for the school. So give us a second, everybody. Ooh, cool comment from Joe Dad Jokes. Oh, Vic was talking about Apple Windows.
What
I'm
is an
having a
Apple
wonderful day over
window?
here and I'm still not getting it. I'm sorry. All right, Joe Dad Joke says he about gamifying. He says, "I am eventually planning to release an RPG world for my fantasy novels world." I love that idea.
Nice.
I'm thinking about things like class abilities and spell levels, and that help me codify my hard magic and power levels. Joe, I want to hear more about how that works because I think that is an awesome thing to figure out. D&D level gaming is like it seems to me, it's like taking off at levels we've never seen before,
Oh,
which is
yeah.
so cool. Retirement homes, Gabby, when we hit them, are going to be lit.
Yeah, that's gonna
Again,
be a blast. That's gonna
it's
be a
not gonna be
riot.
bridge and cribbage or
Oh,
whatever. It's
we're
going to
doing
be
D&D.
VR headsets, and it's gonna be
Yes.
D&D 24 oh, it's gonna be incredible.
That's
Anyhow,
gonna be
it's
great.
probably going to be in retconned malls turned into, like, deluxe atriums or something.
Yes.
It's
Okay,
gonna
now
be
we gotta
fantastic.
write a book. I'm just
Yeah, it
saying.
sounds like fun. Okay, plus hover cars. Of course, we're finally
Yes.
going to get hover cars.
Gotta
Alright.
have the hover cars.
Let's get this recording going.
Okay.
Hi, friends, and welcome to the Legend Fiction Creative Writing School. I'm your host, Dominic. Today, we're joined by, as always, Gabi Batel. Good to have you, Gabi. Welcome.
Thank you. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. We're talking about subtext. This is a little bit of a funny word to throw at people. So let's define it. What are we talking about with subtext? Why is it an important thing to be thinking about as you're already going through all the stuff of like character building, world building, planning out a novel, trying to meet your deadlines, and someone goes, "Hey, how's your subtext holding up?" And you're like what? So how would you describe it?
Well, let's break apart the word. There's subtext, sub under, like the subway, and then text. What is under the text? What is under the written words that you use? Frankly, it's what isn't said, but is
Mhm.
very much heard. So I use this example a lot, but I feel like it works, so I'm going to use it again. And don't worry, I have plenty of other examples today, but this is just the one to introduce it. If I said to someone, "I love you," and they said back to me, "Okay,"
Very
there's
Han
a whole
Solo.
lot of subtext there.
Mhm.
Now, all they said was, "Okay." That's the text. Those are the words used, "Okay," which can, in a lot of instances, be pretty innocuous. But because of the situation, possibly because of the body language, because of the response to what I said, so
Yeah,
the
the
surrounding
people
text.
involved in the delivery.
Exactly right. All of that combined gives us the subtext, what is under the words, what isn't written, what isn't said, but is
Mhm.
still very much heard.
Mhm.
That's what subtext is. And why it's so important is two reasons. One is if you think about it, a whole lot of the time when we actually interact with people and we talk, there's a whole lot of subtext going on. We very, very rarely actually say every little thing that's on our mind. We're relying on the other person to interpret it. I'll give you an example. If someone, there was one time there was a worker at our house and he was in the bedroom because he was working on the bathroom. He was on this side of the bed and the drill was on the other side of the bed. And my best friend was at the house at the time. And he needed the drill to like point something out to us. And he said, "Oh, there's my drill." And my friend picking up on the subtext. Now, did I want him to use a polite question and ask my friend, "Hi, would you mind please handing me that drill over there?" Yes, I would have preferred that myself. But she got the subtext. The subtext was, "Oh, he wants the drill." All he said was, "Oh, there's my drill," but he wants the drill. So she picked it up and she brought it to him. That kind of a thing. That's how we actually talk to people a lot of the time. And the
See,
second.
that's some lovely one, good old feminine intuition there because a guy in the room would have been like, "Well, that's one bright guy," you know.
Yep, there it is indeed, sitting there.
Okay, I called it out. Years and years ago, I remember hearing or reading about, and I'm probably going to butcher this. So if somebody knows more about this, I should probably slow down and research a little bit more. But I remember being impressed by a description of kabuki theater in Japan
Oh,
and
yeah.
how it's created and the mindset behind how it's created. So obviously, if I remember right, you've got face masks and characters moving. I'm not sure if they talk or if it's sort of more expressive and somebody else is narrating. I don't remember. But anyhow, um, the way that they love storytelling is to be understated and
Mhm.
to intentionally try to never straight up say what they mean.
Exactly.
Why? Because it means it leaves 50% of the storytelling experience happens in the audience's mind.
Exactly right, that's what I was just about to say.
Okay. I thought, first of all, I loved that idea because it allows you to be able to create more nuance into your story. But what it also does is it gives you an insight into how storytelling is done in the Old Testament. For those of
Mhm.
us who are Christians and who read the Bible, interesting things are done in terms of storytelling. And the subtext to it all is the key, which is why we can often get such diverging um, interpretations of what these stories mean. It's because in the Old Testament, when the stories were told, they're almost never told from the interior experience of the person. So you're never given an insight into what they think. All you're told is what they do
Yes.
and the outcome of the sequences. And the,
Yep.
the author will usually, out of a sort of reverence for their forebears, will try not to judge too obviously, the
Mhm.
actions of their forebears, and they will leave that to the audience, you know?
Yes.
And that's how you get stuff like, Jacob stealing from Esau, but it's sort of told in a neutral way, and then we're like, "Well, was it a good thing? Was it a bad thing? Did the ends justify the means?" He sort of
Right.
won, he was supposed to do it. It was a bad thing anyway in spite
Right.
of, and it creates because the story is a bit like when it's told in that way, it's a bit like an enzyme, right? Goes to
Yes.
work inside you doing stuff, getting you to stop and think. And I
Yes.
think some of the best stories we know and love kind of do this. There's the
Mhm.
superficial layer of like what happens, but then there's the subtext of what it means.
Mhm.
And I think a lot more adult stories will do that because adults like to go and chew on stuff more,
Yes.
more deeply.
Gotta
So,
think about it, gotta be involved, gotta be invested. That's
yeah.
what subtext does for you. It actually, like, heightens the emotion
Mhm.
because, I've heard lately that, Netflix, they're asking their writers stop this now, but they're asking their writers or whatever they use to write to make, the dialogue more overt. They're
Yeah.
removing the subtext from their dialogue because they're expecting people to also be scrolling on their phones or whatever while they're
Ironing,
doing
washing
net
dishes, looping it in the
exactly right.
background, they're not paying attention, yeah, so repeat it a
Exactly.
lot more, yeah.
And what has happened, if you notice a lot of people, sure, they're probably still watching Netflix because they're also ironing or scrolling or whatever the case may be. But
Mhm,
people have noticed, why does the dialogue sound like this? There's no depth to it anymore. It's just kind of like
mhm,
being fed to me. That's all there
yeah,
is.
yeah,
And that's not what we want for our books because if someone is sitting down and taking a minute to read your book, they're invested. So we want to give them the full experience, the full emotional
mhm,
experience, which requires them to actually be
yeah,
involved as if they themselves are in the story, figuring out what that actually meant, feeling the impact of what wasn't said because actions always speak louder than words, kind of a thing.
yeah. I remember as a kid, I can't even remember the name of the series. It was like a competitor to Hardy Boys, but it was smarter, and I don't remember it anymore. I remember there's one moment in a case where I figured it out by putting together the clues before the characters did,
Mhm.
and I'm so annoyed that 20 years later, I'm still remembering how proud I felt as a kid having, figured it out, and I'm like, "The author probably wanted you to so that you would remember it 20 years later."
Right.
Anyway, it's not so much subtext, but it's allowing me to proactively do my own processing instead
Yes.
of it being spoon-fed to me. Now here's
Mhm.
a
It makes you
I
feel
wanna
good, it
see
makes you feel smart. It can be as simple as that.
well, like, you're part of it, like, you're involved in it. It
Yes.
brings it to life a bit more. Now, here's something I'm curious I think this is kind of where this is sort of also a segue into what we're gonna be talking about for the rest of this conversation. I remember learning I don't know who said this. It was that every person there's, like, 3 yous, 3 versions of you,
Mhm.
okay? There's the version of you that everybody sees. It's relatively carefully curated, it's pretty
Mhm.
intentional, it's whatever, and you don't share personal stuff with everybody online, in person, or whatever. Then there's the you that intimate people, your friends and family and close friends sort of mean.
Yes.
You might be a lot more honest and like whatever,
Yeah.
but they're still not everything because that's for the deep you that probably
Just
nobody has
you.
ever met. It's
Right.
you inside the comforting darkness of your own mind, able to say exactly what you think about
Mhm.
anything and everything.
Mhm.
Now, most of our dialogue or conversation, how we interact with people, has those different layers going on. And you're
Mhm.
kind of wondering, how much do I tell you? I
Yeah.
don't think that we think about this when we're creating our characters and we're thinking
Right.
about, you know, it's when you get people monologuing in their own heads, it can be that internal person, like just straight up
Mhm.
being cynical and can be funny maybe or raw or harsh or whatever. But then we forget there's two other layers in how we talk to people. You can't be 100% yourself with a complete stranger or the king or the bad guy um, because nobody functions that way.
Mhm.
Everybody has layers.
Has
And
the
so that
layers.
often means this is why if it's a non-actiony sort of movie or why most romance novels, they're all about the negotiation of those layers. Who am I
Yes.
talking to right now? The public
Right.
you, the friendly you, the deep internal you, you know? And that's why like the classics of uh, the novel genres. I think they're going to get these layers and they're going to understand it takes time and friendship to, for the deep you to meet the deep you of another person. And these often
Mhm.
become like forever love stories or the deep friendships, that we admire, something like that. Okay, so that for me, that gives me a mental image of, like,
Yes.
how subtext or why subtext works. It's because it's how we operate as human beings, like, all the time anyway.
Exactly right, and it's our job as the authors. Now, I'm referring specifically to in dialogue. There can be subtext, like, outside of there can and should be, subtext in the rest of your writing, but this month's lesson is dialogue, and that's where it's most important because I think people will forgive if someone overstates something in their head. It's not ideal, but if you do it, we think very clearly to ourselves. So it's kind of like, "Okay, yeah, I know exactly what I'm thinking, this is what I'm going." Nobody speaks that way. And the disconnect happens when someone, for example, takes their inner you and blurts it out to a complete stranger and it's like, "Wait, no, no, no." So what your job as the writer is to pick and select exact words, limited words, and body language and situations and actions and reactions that are going to make sense for only the outer you to do,
Mhm,
but that reflect the inner you clearly enough that
mhm,
the reader can experience it without a doubt.
yeah. You know what's interesting about this? So, I've been harping on conversation and a person expressing themselves through dialogue because that's what stories are. They're about people going through as much stuff as we can throw at them until they reach the end and finally convert or figure it out or level up or whatever. But I was actually writing a short story yesterday and I had no idea how it was going to end up. I gave myself an hour. I'm just going to try to write something and followed some prompts and I just started banging it out and it was really really fun.
Oh, good.
And then by the time I was getting like 3/4 of the way through, all of a sudden, the subtext of what was going on just kinda, like, leapt out at me, and I realized I'm echoing the same idea in 3 different ways. I've got my main character who feels trapped inside her own self. I've got the goddess of the local area is trapped inside a vault. I've got the city trapped inside a basin in the mountains, not be able to get out. It's like, this is actually
Mm.
really interesting. The whole
Yeah.
it's like nested little layers of all different ways of just feeling around the same idea, and I sort of maybe indicated it the level of awareness was on her and the figure of the goddess who needs her help to
Mhm.
create freedom. Um, but then I guess I'm gonna leave it up to the author the readers to see if they figure out the rest of the subtext and that
Yeah.
that idea is expanded out through, like, everything else that happens in the story. So it was just interesting in that sense. I sort of discovered that's what I was doing, and for some reason, it felt like it clicked as I was writing it through. That's why you get comments like Tolkien going, "When I wrote Lord of the Rings, it was intentionally, sort of not Christian. I was just trying to tell an awesome story. Then I went back and revisited, and it
Yes, and you're
became
like,
a
"Wait a
lot more
minute."
intentionally, you know, faith-based." There was that subtext. Now, here's the thing about subtext, right? And maybe we can get into where you wanna go with this. The point about subtext is you don't force somebody's attention on it. It's
Right.
you're paying attention to the hand wavium of the action, the adventure, the dialogue, the spell casting, whatever. But the subtext is the part that you want. How do I say this? You're trying to have it emerge through the story. You want
Mhm.
somebody to feel along with or understand by like intuiting it. It's a bit like you never want to tell people you're going to have fun when you go to Disneyland. What you do is you create a ton of fun experiences, and by the end, they go, "I had fun, and my imagination has been expanded." And all the Imagineers are like, "Yes, but I couldn't
I
tell you I
did
was
the
trying to
thing.
expand your imagination."
Exactly. The minute you say its name, it's gone. Let's go back to
Mhm,
my original example where I say, "Okay, I love you," and the other person says, "Okay." If my next internal thought starts explaining what that means, like, "Oh my word, he just said okay. Does that mean that he doesn't let" gone. Spell broken. All the tension is gone. You can't explain it. You have to trust the reader, and then you have to trust yourself enough that you did a good job communicating it to the reader. It's much more powerful if I love you, okay, and then we just sit with that. Honestly, cut scenes right there. Leave us with that.
mhm,
So the minute you're exactly right, the minute you say its name, all of a sudden it's gone. Which is why it's kind of hard to teach per se. I can't give you a whole lot of tips on what exactly to do besides to just kind of pay attention to the ways that either it's done really well in movies, in books, and I have a lot of examples ready here for you, And of course, in your real life, pay attention to what isn't said and what is actually implied
Mhm.
by the things that aren't said and how that impacts you, how tone of voice said it, how body language. The one little thing I hate about books is that there's no tone of voice. I can't really
Mm.
express the way you said it, or the exact noise that you made. The English language is very limited when it comes to noises.
Mhm.
So that's kinda hard, but you can make up for that with, say, body language, or in that case, you could, like, use a metaphor. I don't know, he stood there like a stone wall, kind of a thing, to give that impression of the entire situation as a whole. Because remember, subtext is about what isn't said, but we get there based on, and I know I'm repeating
Yeah,
myself, but
putting together the
situation,
clues.
context, tone, body language, who's saying it to who, the relationship,
Yeah.
all of that combined, which is why I can't teach it per se. I can't tell you what to do. Last week, I believe it was last week, we talked about, the story beats and how you can math out your story to plot it, right? I can teach you how to do that. This one, frankly, is just a matter of feeling it out and practice. You just got to get in there in the
Mhm.
mud, play around with it, and see what
Yeah.
happens. And
Well,
so, go ahead.
before we power into that list there, there was, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find it, but I remember shooting you one of those writing tips I saw on Instagram, and I thought, "Oh, he's gonna love this." It was funny, but it
I
had to
did
do
love it.
with
I like all the ones you sent me. I don't remember which one you're referring
I
to,
don't
though.
remember it either. I don't I don't know where it is. Anyhow, the idea was to identify the statement that you want to communicate, which is,
Mhm.
"This person, uh, hates this person," or you know, this person doesn't want to spend any time with, or this person absolutely loves this person. Okay.
Mhm.
So you identify the concept you want to get across. And now you remove every adjective and every clear thought about that. That's sort of the
Yep.
writing challenge. You may not use adjectives to describe how you feel about the situation, and you may not straight up come out and say it. So what are you left with? Well, you're left with, what does the person pay attention to?
Mhm.
Okay. Um, trying to think about like Twilight, for example, right? I've never read the books. I'm trying to remember the movies, right? She comes walking in. Sorry, everybody. She comes walking in and she sees the guy. What's his name?
Edward
Um, Edward Pattinson. No,
Cullen.
Cullen. She sees
Pattinson's
him.
the
You know,
actor.
he's grabbing his nose and like she has no idea what the subtext means of that. She's reading body language. She's seeing how other people are reacting. And so she's intuiting or she's guessing at her assumption of what is being said. Or she's trying to read the room and she's making her own assumptions about it. And then only later that gets reversed. So in the same way as you're writing, as you're writing your scene, how can you, if somebody absolutely is in love with somebody else, what are things that they can do so that they're not consciously thinking out loud? It's like, well, ran to open the door first, maybe tripped on her own feet, and then decided to stay on the ground so they couldn't see her behind the planter because that would be embarrassing. I don't want to look stupid in front of my whoever person that I love. Um, break it down and think about the actions that people take and how they go about delivering things. Like, well, I know you've got a whole list of things we can get in. Let's get into that. But I thought that's a great thing to remember if you're trying to share the text, but then there's the meaning that is being communicated. Um, this also works at the level of the whole novel. If you want to say something like, well, the meta meaning of my novel is that bravery is a lost art that we need to return to people. Well, you can't ever straight up come out and say that.
Say that.
Well,
No.
in the novel that I crafted, as I got halfway through, I realized, oh, that's the big theme of what I'm exploring with this sort of gritty Neverland thing. I can never say that anywhere, but I'm going to put my character through this, and she has to try to discover it and figure it out on her own, and other people are figuring it out too. And by the end, I'm hoping the reader kind of goes, "Oh, that's the point of this whole story, and maybe that's the message for me to ingest as well." Something like that. So
Exactly right, like with Pride and Prejudice, it's in the title, it's about Pride and Prejudice, it's about your ego swallowing your pride for something better. Nobody
mhm,
talks about that, she gives us 400 pages of Elizabeth and Darcy going at it.
being 100% convinced that they're right and the other
Exactly.
person's absolutely awful, and we completely agree with Jane. Is it Jane? No, what's her name?
Elizabeth.
Listen, we completely agree with Elizabeth.
I do.
Yeah. And then you get to the end of the movie and you go, "You know what? Maybe you need
Wait.
to go to confession here or do some introspection. I'm not
I didn't
supposed to be
say.
agreeing with her that much." Okay, so it's more powerful what is not said,
Mhm.
out loud. So let's get into some of your lists, your examples, especially if you have any, like, books or movies that really do this well.
Yes. Now, these ones are actually just from the shelves behind me. And they're not like particular hand-picked, these are the best lines of dialogue in the book type of a thing. I just flipped to a page and I found a bit of dialogue that I thought did it pretty well and either did it excellently, like completely subtext, nothing was like said outright, maximum impact, or I thought it did it pretty well, and then we can discuss maybe how I might recommend to improve it a little bit. And also with this, I just want to take a load off of your mind. These are my favorite books ever that I am pulling these from, and I'm still going to like, oh, okay, maybe I would have changed this. They're still my favorite books ever. So if you are writing and you're like, oh my goodness, I have to write the perfect subtext it's okay. Sometimes we're writers, we're people, we let something slip through, we just say it because it makes sense in our minds to just say it. So don't stress over it. But to help you get an idea of what we can look for, I am going to nitpick at some of my favorite novels ever.
Cool.
Okay, so this first one is from a book called, what's it called? A Far Better Thing, which is a retelling of A Tale of Two Cities with fairies. Now, for each of these, I am going to give you I'm going to explain some context for them because, again, context is a big part of what the sentence then is going to mean.
Mhm.
But this is right at the end, right as Carton is about to swap places with Darnay. If you have not read A Tale of Two Cities, what are you doing? Go read it. Go read it, and then you'll know what I'm meaning. Okay, so he's speaking to, I believe, a fairy. Um, why have you come now? I asked. Darnay's about to be killed, isn't he? He is, she said. Check your coat pocket. And then she leaves. Okay, so she didn't say anything very specific. All she said was check your coat pocket, and then she left. The implication is I'm going to help you. I'm going to pay off this debt. We had a deal. I'm going to fulfill it. I'm going to be your friend. I'm not going to betray you. I've left something of importance to help you with your task in your coat pocket. That is all that is implied in that statement. But all she said was, yeah, you're right. Check your coat pocket. There's also a lot of an element of you can get who these people are just by what they're saying and what they're not saying and how they're responding. For example, this dude's about to go die. He's about to go get beheaded, and she knows this. Or if she doesn't know that he's about to get beheaded, she knows he's walking into some pretty thick danger. And all she says is, she doesn't say, let's reconsider this. Please don't go into danger. All she says is, yeah, you're right. This dude's about to die. Not a care in the world. So we get an impression of this character that she's very distant, she's very cold, but probably pretty honor bound because she tells him, check your coat pocket. I'm going to help you.
Mhm.
That kind of a thing. So did you see all of what was implied in there
Mhm.
minus what was actually said?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's so see, I love that kind of thing because I love being able to lean in and sort of try to tease out what things could mean, and then, of course, you got the rest of the story to sort of prove it and see if you've understood it,
Exactly
well. Like,
right.
there's a scene in, what is it? Peaky Blinders. It's probably season 1 at some point, where the main character, Tommy Shelby, um, he's being strong-armed into doing something he doesn't wanna do, and so he's called to a secret meeting with the chief of police, and they hate their guts, and then there's a competing gang, and they hate his guts, and everybody hates guts. Very gutsy story. And he comes in there, and as he routinely does, he surveys the room, and he's trying to identify where's the weak point or where do I wanna go with anything. And what's at one point, the chief of police is trying to control the situation and sort of do it by the book and make sure everybody knows exactly what to do. Tommy never looks at him and goes, I don't respect you. You mean nothing to me. If I could take you out right now, I would. So I'm going to focus on these other people. That is never communicated. Instead, all he does is he never makes eye contact with him, never looks at him, focuses on the one person that he knows, and he starts poking just at that one person. And then when the other people in the room start yelling at him to try to get control, he keeps going, keeps pushing, keeps poking, keeps trying to get them off balance. What is he doing? It's never said, but you can see from body language, interaction, you know, the dominance language of what's going on is he's demonstrating to the room, I'm in charge of the situation, even
Mhm.
though I'm underneath everybody and everybody else thinks they're on top. I control the dynamic of everything here, and I will only stop when I choose. And gosh, I love that sort of you never say it, but it's
Mm-mm.
how you do it. And then
Yep.
everybody walks away from that room going, what just happened? We thought we were in charge and had him over a barrel or,
Mhm.
and instead, uh, everything is upside down or everything is changed. Something I think that goes subtext, that's implication, that's,
Yes.
it's so much more rewarding because you sort of, as a
Yes.
watcher, as a reader, kind of lean in, you're trying to pay attention. There's information being shared here that
Yes.
I have to pull out, that's not being said.
Right. Exactly right. That's another sorry. That example is another perfect instance where, like you just said, nothing is said. Not that's even less speaking than the one that I just gave you. The one that I just gave you was relatively straightforward of two people, like, trying to interact and say to get out of the conversation and move to the next step. Yours was even better because there are no words spoken. Like, there is no actual hint at what is actually going on inside of what's the main character's name?
Tommy.
Tommy, in Tommy's mind, because he's not saying anything. And remember back to it was 2 weeks ago that we talked about mathing out, the plot. Last week, we were talking about just, like, how to write dialogue well, and you remember how I said, "Cut the dialogue in half."
Mhm.
That's why, because really, dialogue this is a little bit of a jaded statement, so take it with a grain of salt. Dialogue is a crutch.
Oh,
It
really?
is it's not, obviously, it's a tool that you can use and
Mhm.
use it well and use it effectively when you use it properly, but it's just really easy to kind of slip in to using it as just a way to not have to fulfill all the work outside of the dialogue of the situation, the body language. What positions am I going to put them in that's going to force this message out? Because if I just say it, well, there and done. We're a very like efficiency based society here. We're kind of like, okay, it's can I summarize these 10 pages into 3 sentences? That's what dialogue does. It really, really just takes the grander bit and shrinks it down into something microwavable. Ready? Here you go. And again, take all of this with a grain of salt because this is coming from someone who does not like dialogue. It's a tool and you need to use it and you need to use it well because it also, what we say also implies something. For example, the one I just gave. Why have you come now? Darnay is about to be killed, isn't he? Okay, you needed him to say that to hear him kind of being like, okay, what are you doing now? You hear the emphasis on now. You shouldn't be here. You don't care. This is my fight. I feel alone in this. Everything's
Mhm.
almost gone completely into the trash bin. You can hear the almost lack of hope in there. And then she says very coldly, he is, check your coat pocket. So
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
did need dialogue for that. And in this instance, it's not a crutch, but that's because it's done well and it's very concise. It's
Mhm.
very shortened. Keep that to a minimum, like Tommy does. Don't speak. Rely the most on what they're doing.
What's
That.
also really cool about what you just said? There's specific words that you can throw in
Mhm.
that indicate a pattern of behavior, and it can be the
Yes.
first line in your story. And as we've been sort of doing all these recordings, I'm realizing I really, really love first lines that
I
indicate,
remember you telling me this tip. I love
yeah,
it.
whole patterns of behavior. It's like you said the word, "What are you doing now?" Just that line immediately means, oh, somebody routinely does something, or it's like,
Mhm.
did you ever get that thing done? Or, you know, could you stop it already? Right? Or
Mhm.
you could make up all kinds of different phrases. The point is there are specific little words you can throw in there that indicate uh, what you're doing now is something you have been doing for a long time, and the 2 characters kind of know about it, and so you don't have to describe all that other stuff. And it's like, "So did you get that did you, get another job yet? What does that
Right.
imply about everything going on?" And just it's like that I love how succinct that is,
Yep.
and the subtext to it, it
Mhm.
speaks volumes, right, of
Yes.
all kinds of activity and whatever. Alright, you've got so many, examples and things, like, I wanna get into them before we run out of time, so
Yeah,
back over to you.
let's blow through these real quick. Okay,
Mhm.
so the next one. This is from Stepsister by what's her name? Jennifer Donnelly. Love this book. It's actually the inspiration for my newest book, Ending. Um Two people are talking, it obviously because it's dialogue. There is the wicked stepsister long after the Cinderella story, and it is the stable boy that she once was in love with, but all of a sudden he disappeared one day and now they've reunited and it's still awkward. It's still like, why did you leave? And he says something to the effect that he cares about her. I deleted the line before that because it was just a lot and it's not like the meat of this conversation. "Is that some kind of rotten joke, Felix?" she asked angrily. "You should leave. Go. As far as you can." And then he responds, "I already tried that." All right. So, the only thing that I would change about this bit of dialogue is the part where it says she asked angrily. Get rid of angrily. You don't need angrily because she just asked him, "Is that some kind of rotten joke, Felix?" I don't know any other context you would say that besides being angry. The rest of it is gold. Because what she doesn't say is, "I don't believe you that you care about me. I'm still angry with you. I feel betrayed that you left and all of a sudden I was on my own and the one person that I thought actually loved me left and then I've had to deal with all of this by myself." She doesn't say any of that. She says, "Is that some kind of rotten joke? Are you making fun of me? Are you hurting me again?" She says,
Mhm.
Is this some kind of rotten joke? You should leave. Go as far as you can." So she doesn't say, "I hate you." She's still not saying, "I'm angry with you." She's not even saying necessarily, she's not saying overtly, "I don't want to see you because it pains me to still be talking." She just says, "You should leave. Go as far as you can." And then, of course, we got this golden line, "I already tried that." We hear
If you can
volumes
imagine,
there.
yeah, if you can imagine these as, like, opening lines to a chapter or a novel
Mhm.
or a short story, they accomplish so much
Mhm.
in so short a period of time.
Yes.
Beginner authors will try to do the setup, you wake up in the morning, you hate your alarm clock, you find your way to work, right? We think that, "Oh, we gotta do blow by blow stuff." Whereas a more experienced author will do something like, "You know what? This contributes nothing to teaching us or showing us uh, what the main character is trying to do in this story." So more experienced authors will often dump a lot of that unless showing that is really important to the story.
Right.
They will be very intentional about what's included, but they'll often start with little bangers like these
Yep.
that do a ton of heavy lifting right up front really quickly.
Yes.
And it's very satisfying to create, but it also allows the reader to instantly go, "Oh, that means all of these other things are going on."
Exactly right. Exactly right. All right. So the next one here, this is from Babel by R.F. Kuang, and let me know when you gotta go because I know you might have like a guest speaker.
In about,
Um,
yeah, about 4 minutes or so, we should have our next guest coming on. So let's
okay,
start
so
wrapping
I'll
up.
cherry
You
pick
can
my
probably
favorite.
take a bunch of these and put them below the lesson or something.
Yes, that's a good idea. All right, I'm gonna do that. So this is from Babbel. We have these students who are in Oxford doing magical translation, and most of them are young white men. But then you have this group of people who are either one is mixed race, one is Indian, and then there are two girls. One of the girls asks one of the women professors this question. She says, "But you're the only woman professor at Babel, and we all, that is, all the girls here and I, we think that's quite admirable. So I wanted," and then the teacher cuts her off, "to know how it's done. Hard work and innate brilliance. You know that already." Now, this one I really love, but I think I would do some tweaking here. First, let's talk about what it does great so far. The fact that the teacher interrupts the student. Loads of subtext right there. I don't want to hear the rest of that sentence. I
Yeah,
don't
I don't
have time for
respect
you.
you. Yeah.
Exactly. I don't respect you. I don't have time for you. This is a ridiculous question. And then she answers. Now, the answer is where I do a little bit of tweaking, and I can show you just how one Small change can actually massively increase the subtext. So she says to know how it's done, hard work and innate brilliance. You know that already. So the hard work and innate brilliance is kind of explanatory. If she had just said to know how it's done, you know that already. Okay, what does she know already? She knows that it's hard work and innate brilliance because all this character ever talks about is how smart she must be to have gotten in to Babel when mostly it's just young men who are allowed in. She had to actually fight tooth and nail to get her way in. That would
Mhm.
really elevate the dialogue and be like, okay, it's also then the teacher forcing her to think. Like, "Think about this, girl. You know, you're so smart, you're so hardworking. I want you to think this through. There's no magic pill that got me to this position. Figure it out." All that subtext then added just by removing the words hard work and innate brilliance.
Yeah, that's great. You know, the line that's like, well, I think that's and you could probably trim this. I'm trying to think of a smart way to wrap this up. I'll be really mean. So, Gabby, how would you wrap this up?
I would wrap it up by saying practice and read books, read dialogue, listen to movies. And I'm going to put a little bit of a weight on your shoulders here, but it's an exciting weight. It is the weight of somebody who knows what they're doing. And so you get to judge other people's work just for practice. You get to look at the dialogue. Think, okay, did that sound natural? Start with how it sounds. If it didn't sound completely natural, ask yourself why. Probably because they're over explaining something. Then you can go to the next level, and even if something does sound relatively natural, because that last example that I just gave you where she said hard work and innate brilliance, I don't know, that's not the most unlikely thing for someone to say. But you, as the reader, can know, wait a minute. I'm smart enough to have been able to figure it out myself without having to have it written out for me. So try it. Try it with movies. You got to understand some of them are going to do it excellently, some of them are not. So you can learn from the ones that are doing it great, but you can also learn from the ones and it could be in the same show. You know, some lines are great, some lines are like, "Oh my goodness, why did you explain that to me? Why did you say it so outright?"
Mhm.
Practice, 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 and have fun with it, you know, just, like, you don't have to, like, read an entire book and study. Do what I did last night, open random lines of dialogue and be like, "Okay, I'm looking at the context, I'm looking at the
Mhm.
situation, the surrounding text, the body language, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Do I think this does a good job? Do I think what would happen if I got rid of this entire sentence? If I got rid of this sentence, hard work and innate brilliance, could I still understand what's going on? Would I still get the right impression? If you
Mm.
can, get rid of it. See if you
Yeah.
can get rid of it. If you can get rid of this entire chunk of dialogue because, you know, "Oh, she's a very generous girl," someone says, and, like, she's literally just given, like, all of her allowance and her lunch to some kid on the street, and now she's just walking around in the dust. You don't need to
Mhm.
say, "Oh, she's very generous," because you already showed that. So if you can get rid of it, try it and see how then getting rid of all that kind of extra clutter makes the core of it really shine.
Yeah. And at the risk of derailing this whole thing, I want to yeet one last idea before we close this. Um, we've talked a lot about subtext at the sort of micro level of a scene in a conversation.
Mhm.
There is also the subtext at the larger level of what's happening at the whole level of a story. And what I
Yes.
have found is a very helpful, for me, way to think about it is to realize that any story that you're telling has what you believe in it. That's
Yes.
also called philosophy. um, what you believe comes out in, or at least what you are wrestling with your
Mhm.
belief. You're putting your characters through things and through decisions as you are processing them, or you may be already convinced of it, and you're now making your character go through it to see if they can reach that same sort of level of conviction.
Yep.
Well, I have found it helpful to think of it as a metaphor that all stories are a war of gods, because a philosophy is a living out or an attitude of a god or a
Mhm.
godlike being. Okay. Here's how to live in the world, how to make sense of it, how to organize it, and
Yeah.
so on. That's what philosophy. It's a seeking of wisdom, which is
Yeah.
what applied physics, applied research, applied life. And a novel is usually about two philosophies going at each other, two beliefs about the world, two ways of
Yep.
thinking about the world. And it is those things that you never draw attention to. You never draw like, oh, there goes a god, there's a god. You never do that. Why? Because they're inside everything. You know, it's not
Right.
like oh gosh, what is that movie? Moon Knight. It's not like Moon Knight where like, they're massive and fighting in the distance. It's like, no, they're inside you. They're part of the environment. You're thinking with them. They're thinking with you, right? That's how
Right.
philosophy is, right? So as you're looking at your story and you go, okay, I'm telling a really fun story and this is so cool. If you recognize you've got a point of view that you agree with and your characters do too, and that's why they're going through it, there's an opposing point of view. And the whole point of the story is who wins with these points of view. And it's often not going to be a slam dunk sort of thing. If it's a really honest novel, and the more mature an adult novel is, it's also going to be more honest about how difficult it is to win a war of gods like this. But again, you never draw attention to it. It's
Mm.
through discussion, action, events, decisions that you show alliance or intention. And then by the end, you try to let the readers sort of go, what did I just read? This really moved me in there's depth to this or there's layers to this that was never called out. You don't create fiction as a tract or as a philosophical, tour de force. You're creating fiction as an experience of what it feels like
Right.
to be in something with all of your senses through the adventuring and the living of somebody. So subtext can go all the way from a tiny level all the way to like massive level. Kind of like Tolkien going in revision. Lord of the Rings was extremely Catholic work, but
Mhm.
never draw that out because why? This is the experience of what it feels like to live in a Catholic universe or a Catholic
Exactly
cosmos
right.
without ever straight up saying it.
Right.
Okay, we got to wrap this up.
That's a
This
good
was
place to
fun.
wrap. Alright, thank you so
Gabby,
much
thanks
for
for coming
having
on.
me.
Cheers, Gabby.
See ya. Bye-bye.
All right, I'm going to bring in our next guest, Adam. Hello, Adam. I think from Tasmania, if you can hear me. I'm bringing you back on. It is good to meet you. Hello.
Hello, how are you going?
I'm good. Good to have you on. Thanks for waiting. We did go over by a couple of minutes from the previous segment. So you're all the way in Tasmania, aren't you? What time of day
I
is it
am.
for you?
It's 1:04 a.m. at the moment.
Gosh, what a hero. Are you usually up late or is this a special occasion?
Not this late, no. I
Okay,
did have a little nap beforehand just to make sure I was energized and ready to go.
fantastic. Well, look, I appreciate you making the time and so on to come on. It's fantastic to meet you. I think we were referred to each other through, oh gosh, who's our mutual contact down under? Um,
Joseph Leach.
I was going to say, is it Deacon Leach? Yeah. Good
Yep.
to, well, it's fantastic to meet you. So here's what
Mm.
we'll do. We've got a half hour or so together. I would love to hear about your novel and
Hmm.
your origin story and probably talk about your writing habits and then where people can find you online, what you're up to next. And you dropped a comment as you scheduled the event, which is Christian fantasy without the preaching. That's always a really fun one to talk about.
Hmm.
So see how far we can get and everything. But and what I'll do afterwards is I'll clip out this segment so that you can have it to share with friends and fans online as well. So yeah, Adam Collins,
Sounds good.
welcome to the show. What is your
Yeah.
latest book? Tell us about it.
Yeah. So I do a series called Jewel of the Stars.
Hmm.
So it's a series of novellas. So you can see they're
Oh, that's
fairly short.
fantastic. Yeah,
So I've got four out at the moment. So this is
amazing.
the latest one, number four that just came out.
Very
Um,
cool. Okay. And a
so
novella
these
is what?
are
50,000, 60,000
about
words?
about about 30,000 words each.
30,000.
These are.
Okay.
Mm.
Nice.
So
Nice.
it's about a cruise ship on the run through unexplored space after Earth falls to an alien invasion.
Oh, cool.
So
Okay.
yeah, these characters were expecting a 2-week holiday on a nice cruise ship, and now that Earth is occupied territory. They can't go home, so they have to head off into the unknown and make a new life for themselves.
Okay.
So there's kind of a bit of a Battlestar Galactica element there,
Mhm.
bit of Star Trek mixed in, and yeah, maybe a little bit of the Love Boat, if you
I
remember
was
that
gonna
one.
say, these are people who are not equipped for,
Mm,
well, anything serious really, right? Because it's a cruise ship and they're all expecting fun
yeah.
and games, and then suddenly it gets serious.
Mm.
This is so fun. Okay, who are some of the main characters?
Yeah, so we've got two sides to that. We've got the crew, obviously, which is your fairly standard kind of sci-fi cast. So we've got the captain, the first officer, and chief engineer, doctor, all of that. Of course, we also have a cruise director that you don't often see.
Mhm.
And these characters will they continue through all of these books. But in each book, I also kind of highlight in on some passenger characters, so one or two passengers, and kind of tell their story and how they're dealing with being in this crazy situation. And those passengers will kind of come back and in each other's stories as well. But one of them will generally take the highlight in each book.
Hmm. Okay,
So
that's
yeah,
fun. What inspired this?
the idea first came when my parents went on a cruise.
Okay.
I grew
I
up
was going to
watching
say, do you
Star
have
Trek.
your own any personal connection to the cruise experience?
Yeah, I have actually been on two cruises now myself,
Nice.
but this was a bit before that. But yeah, having grown up watching Star Trek and noticing that Star Trek was very much modelled after the Navy.
Hmm.
Um, so whenever I see anything naval or nautical, the first thing my brain does is think, yeah, but what about that in space?
Of
So
course, yeah.
so yeah, when my parents told me that they were going on a cruise, my immediate thought was, oh, what about a cruise ship in space?
Hmm.
And then, of course, I had to think, well, where's the story in that? And this idea that, disaster back home, they can't go home.
Hmm.
So, yeah, that was that kind of. And I originally envisaged this as like a big, epic sci fi novel, like a big, thick book.
Hmm.
I thought it'd need to be that to tell the story and to tell all the different characters. And then I realized I could do this in a very different way because I was kind of putting off telling the story because I was thinking I'm not ready to write this big, grand
Hmm.
epic yet.
Okay.
But I came to, there was a bit of a movement a number of years ago in the indie or the community doing these kind of serialized episodic type books
Hmm.
where they'd call them episodes and they'd gather them together as seasons, just like a TV show.
Hmm.
And growing up in the TV kind of generation, that's how I naturally tend to think of a lot of stories in those
Hmm.
terms. And so I thought, well, this is another way I could do this rather than just a huge book. It could be a whole
Yeah.
lot of little books. So if you notice here, I actually say season one,
Oh,
episode
that's so
four.
fun. Yeah.
So yeah, and these books are designed to read kind of like a 40 minutes episode of TV. So
Okay.
each one is a complete story. So
Hmm.
it's a satisfying experience,
Hmm.
but there are ongoing character and plot arcs that continue to develop through the season.
That's so interesting. I'm trying to understand how you structure a story to
Mm,
it's in this expanded storyline, but each one sounds like what you're saying. It stays,
mm,
it has a satisfying ending. It's got a middle, beginning, and end, and all of that.
mm-hmm,
And so it's relatively standalone. But how do you create and resolve uh, a story like this with such a
mm,
fantastic, not only cast of characters, but a scope and potential of where this can
mm,
go? How do you not get lost and keep finding, oh my goodness, I wrote 50,000 instead
mm.
of 30,000?
So I am, a bit of an outliner, and I'm a big story structure nerd.
Mm, okay.
So I basically took the basic principles of story structure with you got your first plot point, your midpoint, how it's all divided up together, and I applied that at multiple levels.
Okay.
So each book has its own structure, but then I apply that story structure as well to the season.
Hmm.
So so like basically the end of book one is essentially the inciting incident for the season and for the entire series.
Okay. Wow.
You know the um the third book kind of serves as the midpoint to the season.
Okay.
So yeah, I
I'm
try
so
to build
jealous you're
these
that
structural points
organized.
in.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had a working theory for the longest time that most seasons function probably like you just described at a
Mm,
macro level. There's specific beats that you want to hit across a season, but then
mm,
you're also hitting inside a given story. And I thought, man, if I could figure that out, then I could create
yeah.
any season or any story. Sounds like you've done it. Um,
Mm,
Adam, tell us more about you. What were your you mentioned Star Trek. What were some of your
mm-hmm.
obsessions as a kid?
Going right back to a kid, uh, Star Wars was an early one.
Yeah.
Um,
Any
was
particular episode that really stood out to you?
Return of the Jedi is a bit of a personal kind of favorite. I think I may have watched that one more than the others potentially.
Okay.
I was a bit younger when I saw the first two, so it probably stuck in my memory a bit more. Um, Knight Rider was another one.
Okay.
Uh, the Transformers cartoon and Voltron, all that kind of
Mhm.
stuff when I was a kid.
Nice.
Um, and then yeah, I was introduced to the original series of Star Trek by my parents, but it was really when the Next Generation came out that kind of became one of my primary fandom.
Really.
Um, and then Babylon 5 came along, and that kind of blew my world open.
Hmm.
The whole Stargate franchise.
Hmm.
So, yeah, a lot of nerdy stuff.
Oh, that's fantastic. I grew up. Stargate was my um, series growing up as a kid.
Hmm.
Excuse me. And we didn't really do too many of the others for whatever reason. They didn't happen in our household, and so I came to them later on. But so let's talk about your origin story as an author. Then, at what
Mm.
point in this delightful mess of geekery and nerddom, how did writing and fiction loving sort of flare to life?
Mm. Um, yeah, well, books were always a part of my life. I was always encouraged to read. I was given books as a child and enjoyed that.
Hmm.
But yeah, writing was always there as well. I remember even as a little kid, writing stories in like little exercise books.
Hmm.
When we went on a holiday to Queensland when I was very young, and so my brother and I had our like exercise books that we'd write every night before bed. We'd write a story about what we did that day, so we'd have our
Oh, how
holiday
cool!
memories.
Nice.
Um, and yeah, like if we go out for dinner, when you're a kid, it always feels like that it takes forever for the food to come. So you're always, your parents always make
Mhm.
sure you've got something to entertain you. So I was there writing stories in the restaurant. So yeah, it was always something I did for enjoyment. Um, when I was kind of heading towards my late teens, is probably when I started to think, I wonder if I could actually get something published that other people could read.
Hmm.
And that kind of became a little dream that was in the back of my head as I continued to learn more about writing and practice it a bit more seriously. And yeah, if I'd been a little more on top of things, I would have been ready for that self-publishing revolution when it first arrived. And I
Mm.
could have been one of those early Kindle millionaires, but that
Uh,
didn't happen.
well, I'm looking at the fantastic book covers that you've got
Hmm.
on the wall behind you, and
Yes.
I can't see them very well, but they look absolutely fantastic. Second, they look
Mm.
like they're exploding on every cover. How do you
Yes.
have I can't imagine you're blowing up the cruise ship in every episode, but, um, how are you making it so you're crafting the stories. How often do they come out? How long does it take you to produce one? And then what does your self-publishing process look like?
Hmm. Well, the answer to the first one is not often enough.
Mhm.
So yeah, I released the first one in 2017. Um, I really should be putting these out, fairly regularly. I think the ideal for books of this length
In this
would be every.
conversation, I don't should on people, so
Yeah.
you don't have we do what we
Yeah.
can. So how often
This is
are you,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So every year and a half to 2 years is when
okay.
I'm putting out a novella, basically. But I
Nice.
am actively trying to um, get better at that.
Mhm.
So
What does get better
I
at that mean? Like, for you, what does that mean, and what do you need to
mm,
do to make that happen? Like, walk me through what you're thinking.
yeah. So there are two things that tend to hold most of us back. One is finance, and the other is time.
Yeah.
Um, and the finance one is a hard one to solve. But
Mhm.
I've reached a point in life now where my kids are grown up, so I'm not paying school fees. So my wife and I both have decent jobs, so um, I'm not saying it's no longer an issue, but it's
Less of an
a little
issue.
bit, yeah. And
Little
yeah, one really great thing I did a couple of years ago was I opened up a business bank account
Mhm.
because I'd put a little bit into the bills account. This is saving up for my next cover or my next professional edit. But that money gets eaten up by other things. But when I put money into my business account, it's a different bank, and it's a lot easier to be disciplined and leave it in there.
Right.
So that makes that a little bit easier to save up.
Okay.
In terms of the time thing, for a while there, I got lost in a bit of a side quest of all this content marketing. I was doing YouTube videos, I was creating podcasts, I was doing so much of this stuff that was meant to market the books that I wasn't writing the books.
I hear that.
And
Okay.
it's taken me many years to try and figure out a balance between all of that. But this year in particular, I've really been putting a priority on writing the books.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, so I think we're going to start seeing these coming out more often. Plus, when you actually have some readers saying, you know, I loved this, Adam, when's the next one coming? That's a huge motivator to get the work done.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, I want to understand more about this because I work in marketing full time. That's my day job, and then I'm probably over focusing on just marketing in general and avoiding actually doing any writing, exactly as you just described. So yeah, sore spot right there. I'm really interested to understand how you're finding a balance with this. And I think I remember somebody once saying, "Oh, there is no balance. You just decide who dies first or what gets killed off first." Um, how how what did you learn from the content marketing you were doing that you decided no longer served you, and you're now what are you doing now that allows you to keep finding your readers or staying out there in front of
Yeah.
people, but also safeguarding, I would assume, some sort of habit to keep producing, keep writing?
I think basically now I'm just neglecting the podcast. You know,
Okay.
I haven't put anything out on that for all year, I don't think.
Okay.
Um,
And are you taking a
but
break or is it sunset? Is that the plan?
it's still there. Because basically I was, you know, talking about movies and TV, so I used to do this like weekly thing where, like, when Star Trek Picard was airing, every week I'd talk about the latest episode, and whereas the most recent thing I was just going through the original series movies, and I might put one out every couple of months. So yeah, a lot of those things that I was using to try and find readers are no longer effective because I'm just not giving them the time that they need in order to be effective. So I guess, yeah, I'm trying to find readers other ways.
Yeah, what are
So
those
some of the
ways then?
things, yeah, so I'm trying to do some newsletter swaps through
Nice.
BookFunnel.
Okay.
That's gotten a few eyeballs on my books. Yeah, and the other thing I've started doing is a few in-person events.
Okay.
So I became aware of the Tasmanian Indie Author Book Fair, which happens once a
Cool.
year.
Okay.
So I've attended that twice now. And our local council actually did an author market just a couple of weeks ago. So I went to that one as well. And
How cool.
yeah, starting
If
to
you would,
make connections.
yeah, if you would. I'm in the United States. I grew up
Yeah.
in Perth, Australia for maybe 9 years or so. But for most of us, we have no idea what Tasmania is like, how many people are there. It's, you know, for those who don't know, it's at the bottom end of Australia, below Queensland and Sydney, and it's kind of close to New Zealand-ish, which is where I was born, was New Zealand.
Oh,
So
yeah.
what do you, in your world, what are you up against in terms of trying to sell your novels? As you go more in person, is that more personally rewarding, or are you actually able to sell more? Or does it amplify or augment how you're trying to sell online? I guess what's the dream? How are you making it work?
Yeah, the in-person stuff has been a bit of a challenge because I'm a big introvert. But the more often I do it, the more comfortable I get, and I'm starting to get to know some of the other authors. And you know, we always buy each other's books. That's just what authors do.
Yeah.
And yeah, so people may not buy a book there, but they may take a business card, and I do tend to see an uptick in ebook sales after an event, so that's promising.
Nice.
But
Okay.
yeah, Tasmania is a small state. We are an island, and So we have a population of about 570,000 people. So
Okay.
it's a very small population compared to a lot of places.
Mhm.
So we don't have like the big Comic Cons and those kind of things.
Yeah.
When those things do come to Australia, you have to fly to get there. It can be
Is
quite
that what you do? Do you
expensive.
fly to the mainland and fly around?
I haven't done a mainland event
Okay.
yet. I've only done little local ones.
Mhm.
But I do have some friends who get together for the Comic Cons and Supernova. They have a table for the three of them, and they kind of
Nice.
take turns running it and selling each other's books.
Mhm.
So maybe one day um, I'll I'll make the trek up to the big Northern Island
Nice.
and try my luck there.
Oh, that's cool.
That's
Tell us, if you would, about your so what do your writing habits look like on a good day when you're in the
mm,
zone? How do you how do you get in the zone, and how do you stay in? What's your output like? And paint a
mm,
picture for those who are uh as is routinely the case with
mm,
people following writing channels. They're curious to see how other authors make it work
mm,
for their personality types, their energy levels,
yeah.
life situations, and so on. So
Mm.
how does it work for you?
So I've got two main times that I write. There's a Saturday morning and then there's a Tuesday evening.
Mm,
I actually work in IT as a computer programmer,
mhm.
which unfortunately uses a very similar part of the brain, a very similar energy to writing.
Yeah, it
So
does, doesn't it?
I don't do like a lot of writing after work because there's nothing left mentally after a day of
Right.
work.
Yeah, the tank's
So yeah,
empty.
yeah, but Saturday mornings are good. So I make that one of the first things I do on a Saturday. I come out here to
Nice.
my desk
Mm,
and I work on something. And then the Tuesday night came about because my daughter doesn't have a driver's license yet, so she has a young adults at our church on
mhm.
Tuesdays. So I drive her in, and I was dropping her off and then coming home and then going back out again.
Right.
And there was nothing left of the night. And I thought, we've got like a little cafe area in our church building. And I thought, why don't I just stay? I'll
Mhm,
sit at one of the tables with my laptop, and I'll work while she's in her group,
mhm.
and I'll actually get something done. So that's become fairly effective.
Oh, that's
So
fantastic.
yeah, I've kind of created a whole new session of writing each week that I wasn't doing before.
Brilliant. Oh, that's fantastic.
Mm,
Okay, so that's a great segue into one of the talking points that we did want to touch on, which is creating epic fiction, which is what looks like you do, but also being faith inspired, right? So, how do
mm,
you avoid, or what makes sense for you about how to avoid being preachy but still being a Christian, crafting
mm.
fiction, and
Yeah.
um, the battle lines are very severely
Yes.
drawn depending on where you show up. At least in legend fiction, we're trying to eliminate those and like just get back to
Mm,
having, serious fun. Take your faith seriously, take your fun seriously, and just create a good
yeah.
story. How do you make sense of that, and what are your thoughts around
Mm. So I tend to define Christian fiction as fiction written by Christians, not necessarily as fiction written for Christians.
it? Mhm,
So I don't write specifically for a Christian audience.
mhm.
Last time I surveyed my readers on my email list, it came up at about 50-50, which I
Interesting,
thought
yeah.
that's a pretty cool split.
Mhm,
But obviously, my faith is a massive part of my life, and
mhm.
so it's going to leak into the stories because it wouldn't be me if it didn't.
Right.
Um, the way I approach that is, there's a lot of talk these days about representation of various groups,
Hmm,
and I think Christians are one group that are not often represented either at all or very well, very
interesting,
positively.
yeah. It's like the
So I
pendulum
kind of
swung too far the other
yeah,
way.
so I kind of view that as well. My job is to put a Christian character in now and then,
Mhm.
and kind of show readers, well, this is what a Christian actually is like. Because particularly in sci-fi, you've got the big trope of we've outgrown religion, we've put all that behind us. That's all superstition. We don't need that anymore.
Mhm.
And then, of course, in fantasy, you've got the trope of whenever there's a monotheistic religion, it's always this evil kind of organization. And I think
Yeah,
even
the High Sparrow and whatnot.
yeah, I think even non-Christian readers are getting tired of, particularly that one in the fantasy. Um, so yeah, I look at Babylon 5 and Firefly. Both were written by atheists, but they portrayed Christian characters, and they actually did a pretty good job.
How
Um,
interesting. Okay, it's
and
I've never
so,
seen Babylon 5, and I've
mhm,
only watched Firefly twice through.
yeah,
I don't remember Christian characters in Firefly apart
yeah,
from Preacher, right?
yeah,
Um,
yeah. That's what I'm thinking of. The
okay,
Shepherd book. Yeah,
Shepherd, sorry.
yes.
How did they
Um,
handle it well, in your opinion?
well, just in the fact that, and particularly I think in Babylon 5, Jason Michael Straczynski, there were no. There were characters that would appear often just guest characters, but yeah, they were portrayed positively.
Mhm,
There's actually an episode called Passing Through Gethsemane, which really investigated the ideas of grace and forgiveness. This was the writer exploring these ideas from the outside
mhm,
as an atheist saying, I don't know how to forgive, but I see these people who have this incredible grace and forgiveness for others, and
mhm.
so he wanted to explore that idea. Um, and so in that same way, I figure if those shows can have a Christian on their spaceship, why can't I?
Wow.
So
Wow.
the doctor on my ship is actually a Christian,
Okay.
and it's not often a big deal.
Mhm,
It's not really until book 4 that when she takes the center stage as a character that really comes out. But
okay.
that book allowed me to show from her perspective how her faith kind of impacts her thinking and her
Mhm,
values. And book 4 is there's a big moral dilemma that the captain has to face.
okay.
Um, do I do what's right by my crew? Do I do what's right by these aliens? And so there's some interesting discussions that she has between the captain and the doctor.
Nice.
Yeah, and I don't go super deep,
Mhm,
but I tend to think, you know, this character may be the only Christian that some people know.
mhm.
So yeah, let's try and show them what we really like.
Oh, what a great challenge. What a great approach.
Hmm.
As we wrap, I have to ask, over your shoulder, am I seeing it looks like a fantasy map?
Yes,
Is that a project
that's
of yours?
no, that's Brandon Sanderson.
Oh, I
That's
see.
the
Okay.
planet Rosha from his Stormlight Archive series.
Got it. Are you exclusively a sci-fi author, or do you also create in other genres?
I have dabbled in fantasy a little bit lately.
Nice.
I've got short stories in 2 anthologies coming out later this year,
Nice.
both of which are fantasy. I got this little world I'm calling Edric's Escapades, and it's kind of like Doctor Who but on a sailing ship. So
Okay. Cool.
it's a prince and his companion, a princess from a neighboring kingdom, and they're
Okay.
sailing the world, exploring new places and getting into trouble and trying to help people as they go. So
Oh, that's awesome. Well, we're
hmm.
certainly getting a consistent nautical theme here.
Yes.
Adam, where can folk find you online? First of all, thank you again for staying up till 1 in the morning to come and hang out with us on our live stream. It was fantastic
Yeah,
to meet you. Where can folk
my
find you
pleasure.
online and join your mailing list and
Yes.
get a copy of your books and stay in touch for when the next one
Hmm.
lands?
So my website is adamdavidcollings.com, and that's Collings with a G, INGS, not Collins, as it's often mistaken for. And you can find everything there, all my social media, links to all my books, the link sign up for my website, which gives you the free prequel to Duel of the
Mm,
Stars.
nice.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, I'll put the link to your website in the description and folk can check you out, buy a copy of your
Hmm.
books, and join your mailing list. I hope you get some good rest. It was good to hang out
Yes.
with you. Thanks for coming on.
No, thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Cheers. Alrighty, friends. We're going to bring on our next guest, somebody who has been on our show before. She was actually part of the Legend Haven Con, Althea Damgaard. Let's bring on Althea. Hello, Althea, and welcome to the show.
Hey, yeah,
Good to meet you. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good despite everything going on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Oh, well, my father, he finally gets out of the hospital today. he ended up going there
I'm
at the
sorry.
beginning of the week. But I
Okay.
think they figured out what's going on. My sister's been the physical going back and forth person while I've been like the phone tag person. If she's not there, the hospital has to call somebody. I'm the primary, so
Mhm,
I've been kind of like the phone sitter, and she's been the one
mhm.
physically making sure he had everything that he needs. So that worked out for the week.
Got it. Well, I hope it gets better. I hope it's improving. How are you doing in terms of writing? It's been like, goodness, a couple of months already since
Yeah,
we last connected over Legend Haven. Have you had any chance to do anything of your own projects?
yes, I am in the process of getting my novel out to the beta readers and my editor now. So
Oh, exciting.
I'm in the process of setting that up. They they liked it when I switched to Story Origin a few years ago, and so I'm putting it on there. I kind of It kind of takes a bit setup to actually get it all on there, but it's worth it because just the way they can comment and give feedback and everything, and I can have questions for them. It makes it much easier for them because they can just do inline text
Hmm.
and then stuff at the end of sections to let me know what they think of how the book is flowing overall. So, you
Nice.
know, so I'm sticking with that since everybody
That is
seems to
great.
like it. Yeah.
And when you chatted with us at Legend Haven, you were talking about Dragon's Twilight. Is that
Yes,
still the
that's
same book?
the book. Yeah. Yep.
Brilliant.
And I have a
Okay.
cover for the short story too, so Dragon's Oath,
Oh,
and my Kickstarter is in preview mode. So
okay.
a lot's happened since early May. Yeah.
Well, that's fun. All right. Well, here, maybe let's talk about that story for a minute. What I can do is I can uh, link to the conversation. Others can go check out Dragon's Twilight. And then for this conversation, let's touch base on that story. That sounds fun. And then uh, the conversational topic that we wanted to walk around was how Christian fantasy can have death, war, and morally gray characters. That's throwing people for a bit of a loop these days. I'm really interested to just sort of sit back for 15 minutes maybe and just kick it around with you and see what you think. So, but first,
Yeah.
let's talk about your story. What is the you said Dragon's Oath, I think it was?
Yeah, it's a short story.
Hmm.
So that kind of like shows how he ended up giving his oath in the first place. And then the Dragon's Twilight, he has to answer the oath. It's to one of the descendants 300 years later
Hmm.
when like the entity he thought he got rid of isn't quite gone and is manifested in a different way. So
Ah.
so having fun pulling that all together. And then of course people my editor already likes like the female dragon that's in Dragon's Oath that turns into his life mate. I'm like,
Hmm.
yeah, well, okay, she's not alive at the start of the story of Dragon's Twilight. He's trying to figure out how to deal with that, which
Okay.
uncannily kind of uh when I got working on this, my mom was having health issues, and then she passed on Easter weekend. So
I'm
now I've
sorry.
seen my dad go through the same process, or his
Wow.
grieving process.
Okay.
It kind of hits home, but in some ways, kind of helped me with the
Keep
writing
it
and the
real, it
process.
sounds like. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was yeah. So I know I finished like the line edit yesterday or the day before I started putting it up so they could have have access to it. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I got my emotions going because I've laughed and cried and everything else writing the book. So
Wow. Oh, that's
yeah.
amazing. Okay, I've
So
gotta ask, how do you find, beta readers? Is there a software or a tool, or it's a group of people or just friends?
I just go out in the organizations that I'm in, and
Mhm.
I'm a part of Realm Makers, which is a large
Nice.
speculative group. So I've gotten a couple people from there. I have some other groups, and then there's people that they help me with my trilogy. So when I say I'm ready for the next one, and they tell them what it is, they're like, "Oh, I have time in that month to be able to do it," and they're really interested. So you know,
Nice.
I kinda keep it small. So I
Mhm.
never have more than, like, 5 usually. So, like,
Okay.
my editor pops on she'll pop on the Story Origin too, put all her editing comments
Mhm.
in, because she likes doing it more by comments rather than, like, inline stuff. So
Mhm.
she'd rather highlight and do comments. So even if it's a Word doc, she highlights and comments just the same way that Story Origin works. So she likes
Yeah.
going in and using that too. So I have her first run of edits along with my beta readers and see what the story really needs or
Mhm.
doesn't need. So
Yeah. I gotta say, I love the comments are really helpful for deny, approve,
yeah.
for fixing things. In terms of length, what is the length of your short story, and then what's the length of your novel?
The short story I think is just under 7,000 or right around there.
Okay.
So I think
Nice
it's
healthy
6,000 some.
length.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's a nice, and it was shorter than that. And then of course my critique group said, well, it needs more. So I fleshed it out more. And then my editors like, do this and then just play around with like Thomas Umstedt's because I got his patron toolkit. I put the short story in there and I'm like, what do I need to fix? Because this seems like too simple of a fix, and I need
Mhm.
to expand things out somewhere. And it it gave me one idea that I was like, nah, that doesn't quite work, but it gives me ideas of how to fix something my own way. And another thing, it came out with something. And I'm like, I like that, and I can tweak it to be like the characters. So,
Nice.
so his tools sometimes are kind of fun to play with. I don't go in there very often. I usually do it for more shorter stuff or my blurbs or
Yeah.
just playing around, seeing what it will do for, like, back cover copy with
And
his
can
tools
you
for
say more?
ideas.
Who are these
That w
tools? What is this website?
it's Thomas Umstattd. He's he does novel marketing, and,
Okay.
um, I can't remember yeah. I can't remember exactly what he calls it at the moment off the top of my head, but, he has a patron toolkit, like, for $10 a month. You can go in there, and he has all sorts of tools that will help you with different marketing things, figure out your
That
back
sounds
cover
really
blurb,
helpful.
and then some writing stuff. So, yeah, Thomas Umstedt's been around for a long time. So
Okay. Yeah, I think I found it. It looks like uh oh goodness, where is his there we go. Thomasumstattd.com. That's umstattd.com.
yeah.
So okay, I'm gonna give that a have a look at that and poke around.
Yeah,
That
I
seems
got
very helpful.
introduced to him. I forgot who between all my writing organizations, I'm in like several different groups and just keep expanding. And some I do more in than others, but they're all good for like networking to find beta
Yeah.
readers. I have a
Mhm.
critique group now that I actually like that we're doing really well helping each other
Nice.
get in the stories. Like they even spread through the first 8 chapters of this book, so they helped me a lot with getting the start nailed down better. So
Yeah. Well, I'm curious to understand a little more of your, I guess we could say, what is your spirituality, right? So, if we want to talk about how we think we can apply it to fiction, so let's
right.
get a sense of what are we operating out of, and uh, well, yeah, let me punt that over to you. Where would you go with that?
Is it my spirituality? Well, I
Yeah.
definitely know I believe in the whole Holy Spirit, and then He gives you you get the skills, and that's how you connect and everything. I definitely
Hmm.
believe in angels answering prayers and showing up because I've seen them at least once or twice myself. My dad has seen them a lot more. He's a
Nice.
lot more
Okay.
acutely aware of seeing angels and stuff.
Hmm.
So and I totally, like, believe him because especially, like, when my mom passed away, he has
Hmm.
one angel that, is, like, one of his great aunts or so I can't remember exactly who she is. She reminds him of that person, so he always calls
Yeah.
her by and she came and said that she took my mom home, so everything was
Oh,
okay.
that's beautiful.
And then I about the time that she passed, once I figured out what time she passed, I woke up and prayed that God would like give her peace and do whatever it was that it was time for or whatever. And I would,
Yeah.
yeah. So then half an hour after that, dad called and then further discussion, we knew that happened. And that kind of led us into being to have a lot more conversation about
Hmm.
how to connect with God, but understand all our grief in the process, but
Hmm.
understand how God can help it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, you have to have a connection with God and be able to know that you can pray to Him about anything. I mean, even like that you didn't break your toe when you stubbed it, up to like, okay,
Right.
my mom's passed.
Mhm.
What do I do now? Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah. Um,
That's great. That I believe it not I believe, I think it's the data is in, and it's absolutely true. There's a ton of experiencers, out there, people who have genuine testimony, um, of things that most of the rest of us have no idea what to do with. And that's why their structures like spirituality and faith and all of this, um, are just some of the
well,
best answers we've got for holding it all together and like helping us to get through life and do good
yeah.
with it.
And I didn't accept him until I was 33, and I've seen the spiritual side of other stuff, and
Hmm.
yeah, so you know, there's definitely another realm there of stuff going on that
Yeah.
we can't see
So
it. We're not going to understand all of it, but we can connect with God and say,
mhm,
okay, I don't understand this, but help me through it. Yeah.
there you go. Yeah. No, I think that the more I've tried to study fiction itself, like, why do we do fiction, like, at all? Why are we authors just nuts about it? And then why are readers gaga for it? Like, something's going on here that just works in the human person. Like, and so it's an ongoing quest for me to, I don't know, not understand it, but to sort of get in a bit more deeply and try to figure it out. Um, because I think it maps onto sort of this topic, right? That we want to kick around. Like, how can hold on, let me get the little title up again because it was pretty helpful. There we go. How can Christian fantasy have all of these horrible negative things in it, right? And so most religious people, when they turn to fiction, tell me what you think about this. Co-opt it to prove a point, help people see a worldview from their point of view. Um, Try to spin up altar calls, and try to solve the Great Commission and sort of inspire that. And it sounds like you don't think all fiction should be that way. If you're a spiritual or religious minded person, there's a wilder, maybe a different calling that's possible or that's going on. What do you think? Where do you go with that?
Well, I've kind of like spread across different things with like my first book, definitely. Well, it does have like the altar call when like, because I have the light and the dark, and the Lord of Light is, kind of like the allegory of of Jesus. So, there's actually is an altar call, but I try to do my best to make it organic, but it was what felt like that character needed to go through because she came
Mhm,
from a dark family and then had to figure out how to deal things when suddenly she's like running away and ends up in the deviance class in the cathedral light and being like, okay, this isn't what I expected the light leavers to be, and have to progress through stuff and figured out what clicked with her and got her thinking. So I've gone, I've had that level, but then I've also had like the spiritual side of like there's definitely demons and angels working. The book with the dragons, you don't really see you see a lot more high fantastical stuff because I mean it has dragons, then of course you have the dark figures out what to do. The enemy original in the short story was a lich, and then his essence is still around and comes back. But it's kind of like a story that fills a prophecy of how the Lord of Light is like reducing, the dragons and the power of the old magics because they're being used wrong. It's almost like, God, got rid of the Tower of Babel because everybody was trying to get to heaven the wrong way.
mhm.
Yeah, so it,
So,
um,
so
yeah.
what are some of your favorite, especially favorite movies, maybe, or books or stories that do it well, that communicate something deep, but maybe it's not in your face or something, and it's doing what you're talking about. Like, what are some of your favorite movies and books?
Well, no, I like how like Tolkien spins in his faith without really saying he spun his faith in because like we have to write what we know.
Mhm.
So, he was always saying it's not an allegory, kind of like Narnia is more of an
Yeah.
allegory. But uh, I liked how there's a lot of things you can go deeper in his stories and figure out. There's a lot of indie authors that have done nice jobs of pulling the different entities into their fantasy worlds, um, that kind of like pull in a different spirituality and can make you think. I mean,
Mhm.
I, I believe stories. I mean, Jesus, most of his things to make people think. He didn't just play it out and tell you what it was. He made you listen to a parable, and then
Mhm.
even his disciples sometimes were like, "Well, what does that mean?" And then
Yeah.
then we're lucky, like he explained some of them, and they're in the Bible, so so even Jesus had to use stories to help us understand these higher concepts.
Yeah. And
So
they were frequently, um, uncomfortable. Like,
yeah,
we've heard them now a bunch, and so we kinda got used to them, but if you're trying to be in the minds of somebody at that time, these stories are initially, they seem very confusing because, um, they're asking you to be a kind of person that nobody in their right minds would wanna be, or to act in a way that doesn't make sense. It's
yeah,
like, it's just too much at every point, and that's kind of that expansive nature of how Christ relates to everybody and everything, and these stories are they sort of challenge that, not by straight up telling you in a tweet, but by giving you an experience of a story, and that's where I think kinda
yeah,
like
and
this
the
whole.
way that his were based on what people would understand at those times, but we can still relate to them now. And then, we just have to remember the context of some of his stuff, that they were a very agrarian, society. So that's why we have a lot of seeds and growing and that kind of reaping,
Mhm.
because they really understood that. Of course, I grew up on a farm. I totally get it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Uh, so that's why I think story can hit more,
Mhm.
is because it allows us, so even like in nonfiction things, the nonfiction books that try to give us a point, if they actually have story in them, true story, that
Mhm.
helps us understand things, because this person saw it this way and did things. It kind of gives us an idea how to look at it differently than our point of view, because all of us will come in with our own preconceptions that are right and wrong. And
Mhm.
yeah, sometimes we feel zinged when we figure out which ones were wrong, even though we
Yeah.
have no idea what. Sometimes we may not even know where it came from, because it got stuck in our heads when we're so little.
Mhm.
So it's
No, it's true. It's true. I've had how do I say it? It's kind of a working. I guess it's a metaphor. It's an idea, and I thought it would be either a fun story at some point, or it's just sort of a helpful thing for me to think about. And the fact that there would be like a school, maybe a religious school or something in this fantasy city, and it's a bit of a zoo for horrible monsters. And part of the problem is that you can't kill these things because if you do, they will just apparate somewhere else. And you have no
Mm.
idea when or where or the damage that it will cause. And so the idea is to try to cage them and then to study them in sort of a safe, you know, nuclear laboratory kind of environment. And then the downsides is you have, I don't know, like fundamentalists or whatever who are like, these, we cannot countenance these things to live, and certainly not inside a city. It's so profoundly dangerous. And so they, at some point, overwhelm this museum and they go in and they kill all of these beasts, thinking that this is the noble and honorable thing to do, is to ensure they're all dead. And of course, the problem is that they just appear somewhere else. And it seemed it's a bit of a metaphor for ideas, philosophy, parables, bad ideas, wrong ideas, whatever that aren't helpful. Uh, you can't if you try to make people forget about them and kill them and get rid of them, they just show up somewhere else in a different way, and you have no idea when or where. It's far healthier and probably more safe to do kind of what a university is supposed to do, which is cage these things, corral them, study them, inoculate from them, so that you can uh, not. It's not about losing control, but um, not be purist or puritanical about living in it's not just a broken world, a world where there's lots of things in it that you can't control. And if you try to ignore everything and just, try to live a clean and simple and pure and holy life, that's the goal. But unfortunately, we also get into the mud and we can't control what other people do. And if we have no idea how they think or what they're going through, and I think that's what fiction ends up being, is like wrestling with competing ideas or ideas you don't agree with. And we're sort of flexing our characters through some of those, those battles or something like that. Largely because it's exactly what we're doing as humans every day of our life. We're
Yep.
going through this same, trying to figure out how to do the best we can. Um, what do you think about that? Where do you go with that? Because I think, and I'll just interrupt you, interrupt my own
Mhm.
question. As somebody who works on a farm, right? It seems to me that's kind of how gardening and farming works, in that you have to let the weeds grow with the wheat for a season, you know, and then gather it up later. If you're constantly penny pinching all the weeds, well, I think there's a reason for that parable. Maybe throw that over to you. What does that parable speak to you, and what do you think about that?
Well, that's kind of funny because, like, in the garden that my mom had when I was younger, she wanted to do weeding. We weren't, like, nitpicky about weeding, but she wanted to do some weeding. Meanwhile, like, I had a great-grandfather who's still alive, and he would just, like, plant it, and he would never weed, and his garden still worked. So, it was kinda interesting, having a conversation with mom about whether we should be weeding or not. But
Mhm.
in some cases, depending on, like, the environment, you might be able to control things, especially, like, in a smaller bed or whatever, but, like, planting a whole field, you're not gonna go out there and weed, acres of corn. I'm like, it's not
Right.
gonna happen. So,
Yeah.
so it's like, maybe in a smaller garden, you can have a little control, but, like,
Mhm.
most of the control is, the seed is only gonna pop if its seed's meant to, and it's down there and something doesn't get at it first,
Mhm.
and then so you don't have a control if the seed's actually going to turn into a plant anyway,
Mm.
to begin with,
Mhm.
but we know naturally it's supposed to.
Right.
So,
Right.
and then watering stuff, God will bring the rain when He brings the rain. So we don't have control over that either. So
Mm.
it's just a matter of faithfully putting it out there and doing what we know to do for the best results to the best of our ability, and then the rest of it has to go into God's hands.
Yeah, the X
That
factor. How does
Yeah,
choose to handle
yeah,
it? I think you said you're a farm girl. How has
yep.
that affected or formed or inspired you as a person compared to if you were to imagine yourself growing up in the city or somewhere else? Like, you have the experiences of working more closely with plants and with the land or something. How has that formed or made you who you are?
Probably helped my work ethic because I
Yeah.
was always helping and doing stuff. My parents always had us doing stuff since we were little. When we're smaller, it was like
Mhm.
helping mom in the house. When we got bigger, we could start doing more of the farm stuff and whatever.
Mhm.
So, but I was even out in the shop when I was little. So, yeah, I went to kindergarten already knowing my fractions and what a crescent wrench was and finding the right size for that.
That's
So,
great.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think the experience allowed me to gain a lot more of a different perspective than someone who, had parents that worked, or you're in the city and you came home and yeah, you didn't have to
Mhm.
worry about also helping with
Mhm.
animals and plants and yeah.
Okay. So you're somebody you're I don't know if it's a green thumb or not, but you're out there doing all of this stuff and this is your childhood and then you sit down to write your first novel and it's got dragons in it. How did the can you connect those? How did that
Well,
happen?
well, how I got into fantasy, well, like, the first thing I actually wrote was actually, like, a teenage crew mystery style because I was in the Nancy Drew,
Oh, cool.
and so I wrote that, like, when I was 12. I
Mhm.
still actually have it in the journals up in my cupboard, and then I got I found The Hobbit and got reading Tolkien, and then that led to other things, and one of my friends got Dungeons and Dragons, and we were figuring out how to play that and fantasy wise with, and yeah, and then I've always loved reading all sorts of stuff, but fantasy and science fiction, I like them the most. And then of course I was a math science nerd in high school and went on to IT and other
Mhm.
stuff. So
Nice. That's fun. Well, Althea, where can folk find you online so that they can can they read your short story? Is that something that's available or coming out at some point?
it's gonna be given out with my Kickstarter in the fall
Tell us about your
as
Kickstarter. How are you doing that? Where can folk learn more about that?
Um, the Kickstarter, of course, if you go to Kickstarter, you can search by my name, but it's also Dragon's Twilight. It's in preview mode, so if it interests you, I have at least the info about the novel and some pictures.
Mhm.
Um, and then I have on Substack, I have Tales of Carnum.substack.com. So
Mhm.
I call it Tales of Carnum and Beyond, and that's the newsletter and blog that kind of where I will send out updates in newsletters, but I also will do book reviews, kind of
Mhm.
talk about what's going on with my stuff, and then different ways to check out other authors' stuff because I'll throw my book into like book funnel stuff and
Nice.
promos.
Mhm.
And like my first book, Champions of Light of my trilogy. So it's Tales of Car. That's probably the fastest way to find stuff for me. I do have
Mhm.
a website that's my name, altheadamgaard.com. So, but if you go on there, if you want to actually can't remember my Tales of Carnum thing, you can go to blog and follow it. I did up until last year was doing trying to do a somewhat weekly thing with a nonfiction with an abundant life about living with God.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I've had trouble trying to figure out where to go with that.
Mhm.
I kind of like, uh, but I've been able to get more of my ideas into my stories. So, like, okay, dealing with grief, some of that's coming out in this book, Dragon's Twilight, because he lost his life mate.
Got it.
Um, and so that's all the main places to
No,
find me.
that's great.
So,
I'm curious to just press you for an extra 30 seconds. Why are you running a Kickstarter? I've run one for our Legend Fiction community, and it was a whole adventure learning how to do that. And
oh yeah, whole
you're
event.
yeah,
I
how
went
are
through
you?
I went through a class with Author Nation. I got into a free class,
Okay,
and we just finished it, so that helped me get it set up. But I
okay,
decided that I would try the fun of a Kickstarter to just get more copies out there. And it's a way to get like signed copies, the first signed copies and stuff. I'm not going
okay.
into like the whole um, like
Yeah,
special
all of the donor
edition.
perks. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't, but I'm trying to do, a solid like start. Here's my first Kickstarter, and this is not my first book, and just see what happens if it gets the initial like money back for like getting the covers done
nice.
and the other the other things, initial
Well, that's
things.
great. Well, what I'll do, I'll put a link to your Kickstarter in the description and your website so folk can check it out. And especially if you're an author, um, and you're thinking about running a Kickstarter as well, you can go check out what Althea does and how she gets along with it. And
Yeah, see how it
got a bunch
works
of
because it's
authors
my
who are
first.
doing it. Yeah, it's so
Yeah.
interesting to see how people are using it.
A lot of people do like special editions, but I'm like going, I didn't have the money up front to do that.
Mhm.
But then like God gave me an editing job for next month. So like going, I have a
Nice.
little bit more money to play to try to get things organized better. And it might be a stretch goal
Hmm.
because I know the printer I'm going to go with for the main books for the Kickstarter will go all the
Okay.
way up to special edition and they're local in Pennsylvania. So
Wow. So
yeah.
you're bulk printing yourself and you're going local. That's as
Yeah.
opposed to print on demand, huh?
Well, they have, like, a print on demand, so you can do smaller amounts, but
Got it.
it's like I
Okay.
still be doing the delivery
Hmm.
myself because 'cause I'm gonna sign all the books, so they gotta come to me anyway. I gotta have physically touch them before they go to everybody. So,
Nice. Oh, that's
at least
fun.
I'll know at least I know that they went into the box looking the way they were supposed to. Now whether they
Hmm.
get there, that's the fun of shipping. Uh,
That's great. Well,
so
again, to repeat the website, it is Althea Damgaard with two A's.com. Well, there's three A's totally, but Damgaard has, you got four A's going on in your name. Five?
we got
I
5
was going
because
to say, that's,
Althea starts with A,
yeah,
ends with A, and Damgard has the A and then the double A for the fun
yeah.
Danish. Because
It's
yeah,
such an awesome name. So AltheaDamgaard.com. Folk can go check you out. It was fun to have you coming on the live stream this morning. Thanks again. It's good to catch up with you.
yeah, it was fun being here. Thank you.
Thanks, Althea. Have a fantastic rest of your week. Good luck with that Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And thank you, friends. It's the end of our time together. I want to share with you an invite. If you haven't yet, you should come and check out legendfiction.com because there's something that I built that connects specifically with what she was talking about, which is the difficulty we authors have with marketing our books, right? If you're someone like me, you know you want to write a book, but if you kind of know that by the time you're done writing your book, you then have to market it and sell it and try to find people who want to buy it, and that might be a good reason to delay the end of your book. Are you doing that? If you are, it doesn't surprise me. I've done it. I'm still doing it probably. And there's a lot of other authors who are struggling with this too because we don't have a lot of money, exactly as our guest just said. Don't have a lot of money, don't have a lot of time. But we're not writing just for the basement and the brick walls around us. We actually do want people to find and read our books. And so I've got a community. It's a special space inside Legend Fiction, and it's called the Indie Fiction or Indie Author Marketing Mastermind. And what we do is we get together and talk about what's working. Like she mentioned, Kickstarter, Book Funnel. I've not used Book Funnel. Some authors have. So we get together and we talk about what's working, what did not work, what were our experiences and why, and what are we trying and where are we going, right? Tech is changing all the time. New tools are appearing and disappearing all the time. And it can be really helpful to kind of crowdsource together. Um, what our authors are doing. But more importantly, we get to come up with collaborative ideas. I've got one member in there who's a podcaster, and so he interviews the other members of the community. Of course, I invite a bunch of them to come hang out with me here on the live stream as a way to help with your marketing as well. And what I do is I listen. I listen and share what I think because I work in marketing and professionally, and then I have for about 25 years. Share what I think, try to coach and help, and then I take what they say and turn it into things like apps and tools and software and templates and resources, things like that to help authors just keep winning. So it's $20 a month. You can start a 30-day free trial and then cancel anytime. But head over to legendfiction.com, check out the Indie Fiction Author Marketing Mastermind. And if you've got any questions at any point, you can send me a message, drop it in the comments of any of the videos, especially this live stream, or send a message through the Legend Fiction website. I always enjoy hearing from everyone. So please say hi. Have a fantastic rest of your week. If all goes well, we'll be back next week with more guests and more topics and more interesting stuff to help you start and finish the novel that you've been dreaming about and maybe putting off, or maybe wanting to start your next one. So have a fantastic rest of your week.